PlayStation 5 is home to some truly spectacular games, and in this list I'm going to break down over 60 of the most essential picks just for you. From horrors to RPGs, Metroidvanias to MMOs, here is a collection of PS5 games you just need to check out. Stellar Blade is like an old school PS3 action adventure where as Eve, a cybernetically advanced soldier, you literally drop into an apocalyptic Earth aiming to claim it back from the evil Naytiba through hack and slash combat. The visuals are clean and some of the bosses are top tier. A remake we needed? No, not really, but a good remake nonetheless? Hell yes. The Last of Us Part 1 is an utterly stunning looking game, and to this date, one of the most emotionally wrought narrative experiences in the video game format, with a morally grey narrative centred around a survivor and his cargo turned surrogate daughter. And of course we can't have part 1 without part 2, and the 2024 remaster makes it one of the best looking games on PS5. This is a gut-wrenching experience that builds upon the first game in very subversive ways, and under all of that, you have one of the best third-person shooters ever. It's so slick. Tekken 8 is the latest in this decade-spanning fighter series, and it manages to keep the artistic mania of the series past with some gorgeous visuals. With a full story campaign and an expansive online mode for competitive players, there's plenty stuffed in here for fighting fans. A haunting survival experience that will have you obsessing over every single component of your station wagon, surviving ghostly woodlands, gathering resources, figuring out the mystery of the Olympic exclusion zone, and then upgrading your whip to delve deeper than ever before. Pacific Drive is a surprisingly deep experience. A viral moment in gaming if ever we've seen one, Helldivers 2 is a polished third-person shooter that takes the concept of Starship Troopers and realises it with visceral yet hilarious gameplay that will truly push you and your team to the limit. This spin-off series has really found its legs with one of the best Yakuza experiences to date. Split between Yokohama and Hawaii, this dual setting, dual protagonist story has an emotional heft to it, expertly mixing in that wacky side content that we've become accustomed to with this franchise. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth also has some cracking turn-based combat. Starting out as one of the biggest disappointments in console gaming history, now one of the best RPGs out there, Cyberpunk 2077 is a Goliath of an experience with one of the most immersive open worlds in gaming. There's a realism to its world and so much room for experimentation that it's worth multiple playthroughs. A small indie game with surprisingly massive scope, Animal Well is going to require you to wear your thinking cap. This Metroidvania is filled with plenty of platforming puzzles, and it's not going to help you out with endless tutorials or tips. This is just a great brain teaser. One of the most iconic PlayStation 1 releases has been completely remade into what we know now as Final Fantasy VII Integrate. Massively expanding upon the original, this game lovingly recreates some of the most iconic locations from your younger years in gaming with a solid hybrid mix between real-time and turn-based combat. And what's Remake without Rebirth, the second chapter in this spanning trilogy remake, this time switching out the steely streets of Midgar for even more of this expansive fantasy world. Rebirth makes some gameplay improvements here or there while scratching that nostalgic itch. One of the most original games in recent memory with impeccable visual direction from Remedy Games and a gorgeously haunting storyline. Alan Wake 2 is a sequel arriving 13 years after the original, and somehow it was entirely worth the wait. If you like your survival horrors, then this is a mandatory play. The first Prince of Persia game in years and a surprisingly fresh experience, taking slick platforming and a central time mystery and then wrapping it all up in the Metroidvania format. It looks clean, combat is addictive, but this is also a decent wee challenge for those looking for it. Flashier, thanks to the PlayStation 5, Spider-Man Remastered is a bona fide classic and genuinely one of the best Spider-Man stories out there, all enhanced with its thrilling gameplay experience with endlessly satisfying swinging mechanics and some genuinely heartbreaking story moments. And then of course you've got Miles Morales, a smaller yet infectiously entertaining Spidey romp, with New York getting the snowy Christmas treatment and a mix-up to combat with Miles Morales' new powers. This is a lovely short experience and I actually appreciated it for its brevity rather than hanging around for too long. And then to cap off the Spidey themed entries, we have Spider-Man 2, a gorgeous PlayStation 5 experience that expands New York, makes it look better than ever, and will have you whipping around the streets at blistering speeds thanks to the power of the PS5. This is blockbuster gaming if ever I've seen it. Cocoon is another indie puzzler, this time from the guy behind indie hits like Inside and Limbo, where as an insectoid you must traverse a land with orbs that can both power obstacles in your path and allow you to transport yourself to the worlds contained within the orbs. It sounds kinda complicated, but Cocoon does a phenomenal job of explaining how things work without ever truly explaining it. It's been a minute since we last got an Armored Core game, and thankfully Armored Core 6 was worth the wait, with twitchy gameplay as you face off against robotic monstrosities. You can customize and change the build of your own mech, and a ranking system with its levels gives you plenty of replayability. Hailed as one of the best RPGs in recent years, Baldur's Gate 3 is seemingly a game that lets you do anything. Its sprawling fantasy story has a myriad of branching moments, whether those be how you deal with enemies, friends, or even the sort of abilities you allow yourself. You can play it all with friends too in 4-player parties. Reminiscent of an old school pixelated RPG, Sea of Stars has bucket loads of charm with plenty of puzzles, turn-based combat, and the ability to take control of up to 6 different characters. You're harnessing the power of the sun and moon to take down some evil alchemists. This one could easily squeeze its way into a cozy games list. Taking itself a bit more seriously than something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy XVI is a brutal medieval fantasy experience, whereas the aptly named Clive, you will embark on a decade-spanning adventure for revenge, encountering plenty of lively characters and testing your mettle in some of the most epic boss battles the PS5 has to offer. Another legacy fighter franchise with a flashy new entry, Street Fighter VI features this painterly art style that can really make its fights pop. It's gorgeous, has a full campaign, but also has some new elements to the franchise, like a city hub to level up your own character, and of course, similar to Tekken 8, an arcade where you can fight other characters. This is a tightly controlled fighter that is the slickest the franchise has ever been, thanks to PS5. If you love a spot of grinding levels, then Diablo IV is the perfect pick for you. This grim fantasy world is truly excellent with gruesomely detailed graphics, refined and highly customizable combat, and of course, plenty of content to hack and slash your way through, with a full, massive campaign, hundreds of dungeons to conquer, and even a spot of PvP. No Man's Sky is another title that's brought itself back from the clutches of complete dismissal from gamers, with years of endless updates turning it into an enormous space experience. This one allows you to explore to your heart's content. You can become a space trader, maybe you want to set up shop on a beautiful planet that you found, or you can venture across the galaxy with your friends. Quite possibly the quirkiest title on this list, Humanity from Enhanced Games, the team behind Tetris Effect, is a chin scratcher if ever there was one. As a little spiritual dog, you must lead hordes of humans inputting directional commands across increasingly complex obstacle courses. It manages to make you feel really dumb and really smart at the same time, which I would say is the sign of a good puzzler. For the Star Wars fans out there, Jedi Survivor lets you live out that lightsaber wielding fantasy in this far improved and tough as nails action adventure game. There's an epic story in there, mixed in with some really great locations to explore and plenty of gnarly and at times infuriating bosses, if that's the kind of challenge you're in for. Wrapping up the Norse saga of the God of War series, Ragnarok is a Goliath of a game that somehow perfectly refines whilst expanding the already brilliant combat, with gorgeous visuals that capture the ancient feel to its realms and then wrap it all up in a gut-punching emotional storyline that twists and turns its way to an epic conclusion. I was genuinely blown away by this game. The second of the first-person Resident Evil games switches out the swampy bayou of Biohazard for the cobweb-ladled castles of Village, where Ethan Winters will face off against vampires and werewolves in the search for his daughter. This one is action-packed yet still utterly terrifying, even more so if you play the whole thing in VR with the PSVR 2. Keeping it with the franchise, Resident Evil 4 Remake manages to capture the heart of its PS2 classic in ridiculous fashion by retaining all of your favourite moments whilst making it a more streamlined package for the modern era. The graphics are insane, the combat is punchy as ever, and like Village, you can also play all of it in PSVR 2. Do you like colourful dystopian sci-fi worlds and cats? Well, Stray is the perfect combination of the two, where as a furry feline, you will explore robotic towns in the aim of reuniting with your family. It's a relatively brief experience, but one with tons of charm. At one point in time, it seemed like the anticipation and the hype for Elden Ring would be truly insurmountable. But you gotta learn never to bet against From Software, who knocked it out of the park with this action RPG, which donned an open world structure this time, unlike its previous more linear outings. The Lands Between is one of the best open worlds to explore on PS5, with secrets still being discovered to this day. These days, it feels like saying a game is a roguelike is a dirty descriptor in the gaming space, but when you are as good as Hades, there really isn't too much to complain about. Trying to escape the pits of hell, Zagreus must fight through the Greek mythos in challenging top-down combat, where each run offers up different perks and abilities, but each time you try again and reach a little further, there's engaging narrative baked into it all. The Finals is a free-to-play first-person shooter where teams of 3 will compete to deposit cash boxes. With light, medium and heavy builds to pick from, each player has access to different weapons, gadgets and abilities, and are let loose in these fully destructible arena environments. It's one of the most intense and fast-paced shooters out there right now. A launch PS5 game and still one of the best, Bluepoint Games' Demon's Souls remake is a visual delight that retains the feel and essence of the PS3 original, this time bringing the iconic bosses to life in horrifying details. This is one of those games you want a big sparkling 4K TV for. Another Final Fantasy, this time an MMO in the form of Final Fantasy XIV Online. This one has been expanding and improving since its launch a decade ago, with plenty of expansions to explore and further your quest to save the lands of Eorzea. This is one of those games you could know life if you really wanted to, and you could do it all with mates as well. The Dead Space remake may be one of my all-time favourite games. This stunning recreation of the 2008 classic feels like it achieves what just wasn't possible with the original. The sound design is horrifying, the visuals are oppressive yet impressive, and fleshy deterioration on necromorphs' bodies and skin make combat all the more visceral. It's a truly magnificent remake that new and old fans alike should play as soon as they can. You're gonna struggle to find a game as frenetic as Devil May Cry 5, an action-adventure sequel that has been improved and expanded upon in this PS5 version. As Dante, Nero and V, each of which has their own playstyle, you'll band together to take down the Demon King. The triumphant return of this iconic PlayStation platformer, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, is a true technical showcase of the PS5 with Pixar-like visuals, super smooth gameplay and pinpoint controls. It is just a delight to play from start to finish and one that's suited to all ages. If you love your co-op games, then It Takes Two is one of the best. This two-player adventure sees two quarrelling parents on the brink of divorce transformed into dolls and forced to endure minuscule platforming shenanigans to get back to their daughter. It's got a brilliant variety to its platforming, and this is just a great game to play with non-gamers too. An arcane classic often forgotten for the undoubtedly better Dishonored series, but Deathloop has tons to offer with boatloads of charm, that high quality arcane gameplay, and a Groundhog Day premise that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. Bigger and better, Horizon Forbidden West improves pretty much everything over its predecessor, Zero Dawn, to deliver an ever more immersive world, slicker combat, and far improved side characters, on top of an insane sci-fi storyline. It's also one of the best looking games on PS5. However, that should not put you off the base experience, which recently received a massive facelift to bring it up to par with its sequel. The Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster is a true night and day upgrade, and if you haven't experienced its narrative, which is a bit more focused in this game, then this is the perfect excuse to check it out. There are races for those that like cars, and then there are races for those that really love cars. Gran Turismo 7 is of the latter variety, allowing you to get down to the nitty gritty of upgrading what feels like every car under the sun. It's a phenomenal looking game, and it also has PSVR 2 support. Two games packed into one here with the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. It is upping the technical ante by bringing Uncharted 4 and the Lost Legacy to PS5 with 4K visuals, higher frame rates, faster loading times, and of course haptic feedback. But at its core, you also just have two fantastic action-adventure games which are some of the very best of the PS4 generation. A personal favourite of mine, Destiny 2 is one of the best feeling shooters on consoles, with a gorgeous sci-fi world to explore, plenty of activities to work through, and weapons and armour to attain, and you can do it all with a fire team of 2 other squad mates. Now, with its trilogy of expansions concluded with the Witch Queen, Lightfall, and the Final Shape, you have a massive offering to work your way through, and if you don't want to pay a penny, then the base experience is free. Inscryption is a roguelike deck building game that came to the PS5 a couple of years ago now, but it is a smart and absorbing experience with an oddly unnerving atmosphere. It's a game that rewards experimentation as you get a deeper grasp of the game's mechanics, hidden or otherwise, that delicately balances difficulty whilst making things approachable and understandable. And since we're talking card games, I've got to throw in Balatro. Everyone seemingly went feral for this game when it was released in early 2024. It's basically a poker roguelike where certain cards and decks can buff your hand with passives and actions, making it an addictively smart game. The culmination of Ubisoft's RPGification of the Assassin's Creed franchise, Valhalla pits you in the boots of a Viking warrior taking to the country hills of England, which is speckled with Roman ruins. If you like Assassin's Creed, especially the more open world RPG version of it, then this is the biggest of the bunch and easily one of the best looking too. The dream game for every Harry Potter fan out there, Hogwarts Legacy takes the iconic setting of Hogwarts, of course, and lets you explore its every nook and cranny. There's a decent enough story in there, set in the late 1800s, where you can take part in classes, explore the surrounding grounds, expand your knowledge of spells, and coat your character in various wizardy garbs. The slickest beat 'em up out there, Sifu tasks you with fighting your way through various levels, but every time you die, you become a little stronger, but also a little older. You're tasked with making your way all the way to the final boss at as young an age as possible, learning every combo you can to make the most out of its incredible combat. Taking a Pixar aesthetic and applying it to a third-person action-adventure, Kenna Bridge of Spirits sees you as a spirit guide travelling through the magical forest in search of the sacred mountain shrine. The game allows you to enhance companion abilities, manipulate the environment, and engage in some fast-paced combat as you battle the rotting evil that spreads throughout the forest. The Pathless is an open-world action-adventure where as a master huntress you will explore a mythic land with a companion eagle. You're tasked with returning light to the obelisks across the land, which will give you a shot at taking down the cursed spirits. But in between this, you'll be solving large-scale puzzles with free-flowing traversal mechanics. Black Ops 6 was the return to form a lot of Call of Duty fans had been waiting for. With a new Omni movement system, it's a faster and maybe slightly sweatier experience, but the return of classic prestige, gunsmith customization, some great map designs, a full rip-roaring campaign, and back to basic zombies mode, this is one to check out. Really the master of live service, Fortnite has gone from strength to strength to become a giant of the industry, and for good reason too. Of course, the base battle royale experience is fun enough, but it's the way in which Epic Games evolved the experience with new gameplay mechanics, the switch to Unreal Engine 5, the multitude of pop culture spins to acquire, plus it practically became a platform in itself with LEGO Fortnite, Rocket Racing and Fortnite Festival, all of which are playable for free. An open world RPG from Hoyoverse that will consume your every waking moment, Genshin Impact has the sprawling setting of Tevat to explore as you and your party become embroiled in all manner of mysteries and storylines. Across the land, you're searching down bosses and loot, with a party of 4 which you can switch between at any time. Not to mention, the game is live service, so new locations and storyline and mission content are regularly added, so you'll never run out of things to do in Genshin Impact. Set in the Titanfall universe, Apex Legends is a best-in-class first-person battle royale game that has continued to improve and evolve the experience in the half-decade since its launch. I have sunk a lot of time into this one, it is genuinely fantastic. Tales of Arise is your classic modern-day JRPG experience, with a dense lore set, a beautiful world to explore, stylish combat, and plenty of cool characters to play as or build relationships with. The core narrative sees you trying to liberate the world of Reyna from Dana, a ruthless dictator that's been ruling over the land with an iron fist and pillaging the planet of all of its resources. It's then down to you to change the fate of Reyna and create a new and promising future. Launching 2 generations ago, it is truly a testament to Rockstar that Grand Theft Auto V is still being played and talked about to this day. Los Santos is one of the best open world settings ever to bless a video game, with a brilliant triple protagonist storyline and the ever expanding GTA Online, still receiving updates to this day by the way. Plus, the PS5 version makes everything look and run better than ever. In Persona 5, you join the Phantom Thieves and become embroiled in a sprawling storyline filled with dozens of characters and a bunch of dialogue and decisions that will impact the story. It is filled to the brim with what is steadily becoming the signature stylish combat system as you journey deep into twisted dungeons. The Royal in Persona 5 Royal marks the expansion of the original PS4 game, now with new characters, confidants, story, locations, and even a new hook mechanic for some stealthy gameplay. One of the greatest open world RPGs ever made, The Witcher 3 is CD Projekt Red's magnum opus, with a phenomenal setting, brilliant story, and deep gameplay. You know a game has burrowed its way into your heart when you get that fuzzy, nostalgic feeling just from the soundtrack alone, but now you can feel that whilst experiencing a much flashier version of the game with the complete edition on PS5. Ghost of Tsushima is absolute cinema. This samurai epic wants you to feel the coolest you've ever felt as you gallop across gusting plains, unsheath your katana in tense standoffs, and uncover the deadliest and coolest armors on the island. It's also got a story in there that is every bit as emotional as it is epic. Some of the best that this series has to offer, Life is Strange True Colors is when, for me, the series mastered its cozy, supernatural murder mystery vibe, with a new protagonist, new setting, and new host of characters. Deck 9 took over from Don't Nod in the development department, giving the series a well-needed graphical glow-up, and yeah, this one is just pure vibes. Frankly, better than it had any right to be, this sci-fi action-adventure is gorgeous, it's funny, it's emotional, and it's just a joyride. If you're all in on the movie incarnations of these characters, come the end of Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy, you'll be asking, Chris who? I almost skipped this one, but honestly, I'm so glad that I didn't, so do not make that mistake. I'm hitting out with a double whammy here with Astro's Playroom and Astro Bot, a magnificent pairing that not only acts as the best showcase for the DualSense controllers or the best platformers on PS5, but the best non-Mario Mario games since, I don't know, the last good Mario game? If you're a fan of PlayStation and have been around for a while, then you're going to get a right kick out of these games, as they really hone in on that nostalgia whilst remaining endlessly inventive. Kojima is out here doing Kojima things with Death Stranding, a game that I struggle with so much in some places. There's a dude called Die Hardman in it, for goodness sake, but there's just something so special about its moment-to-moment gameplay, making a rugged and realistic landscape and then tasking you with bringing the right kinds of equipment to make it across it is subtly entertaining, a kind of chill experience. We're used to defeating bad guys against insane odds, and there are aspects of that here, but at the same time, have you ever had to wonder how the hell you're gonna get across that river? Because moments like that stayed with me after playing Death Stranding. I think this is my personal favourite PS5 exclusive here, but Returnal is a special kind of roguelike. Taking what they do so well with their arcadey twin-stick shooter past, Housemarque crafted up a game that's combat is so engrossing, its world is so disturbing, and its music is so enchanting. It's blisteringly quick, it is filled with moments that will give you goosebumps, and if you're like me, it will stay with you a long time after you roll credits. A classic of the PS2 era reborn, relived the adventures of Persona 3 with this gorgeous remake. It's got some of the best looking menus you have ever seen, it brings back that iconic time management system, the score is popping off, and it expands this adventure in all of the right ways. We're rounding off this list with another remake in the form of Silent Hill 2, which manages to remain fairly faithful to the PS2 original, but it thrusts it into the modern horror era with impeccable sound design, genuinely frightening DualSense haptics, and a masterful use of lighting, or more so darkness. This is such an engrossing experience on PS5. So, there you have it. That is a massive collection of some of the most essential PlayStation games currently available on PS5. I really do implore you to check out some of these games if you're new to the platform, but let me know if there are any here that I missed out on. I'm sure there are plenty. Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. I really do appreciate that. Even better if you subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content. Anyway, until next time, I've been Aiden, and this has been Push Square.